I want to wish a good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast, those on the West and Central time zones, a good morning. To those watching from Israel and from Europe, I want to wish you a good evening. Here we are, the Jewish people, we're literally on the footsteps of Tisha B'Av. And each and every year, Jews across the world, whether we have parents, don't have parents, we all go into the period of Shloshim, which is what we're in right now during the 9 days. With Tisha B'Av, each and every Jew across the world is in Shiva. We're literally in mourning. And what happens? We relive and we re-experience the tragedies. No different than on Pesach, when we relive our liberation, our emancipation. On Tisha B'Av, when we say the keynote, starting with Jeremiah the prophet, the famous Israeli Payatan, the Kalir, the medieval Payatanim and the modern Payatanim, we go through these various keynote. What are they? They literally are the eulogies. There's a phrase that we have in Judaism, Mi shemeto mutal lefanov. The dead is lying before us. We're reliving the 10 martyrs in the aftermath of the Bar Kokhba genocide, the Roman genocide of the Jews in Israel. We're reliving what happened in Ukraine after the Khmelnytsky massacres. We're reliving what happened after 1/3 of our nation was annihilated 80 years ago. To this, Tisha B'Av is unique. This Tisha B'Av is very different because we don't have to relive and re-experience. We as a nation, whether it is our people, the heart and soul of our people in Israel, or whether it's the Jews throughout the diaspora, right now we're all reeling. We're still trying to come to grips with what happened on the Simchas Torah massacre on 10/7. Today we have 3 unique soldiers, 3 very special soldiers. Ella, whose family is from Kibbutz Be'eri, Yoav, whose family is from Kfar Aza, and Ron. Ron is someone who's serving right now in Miluim, in reserves, but had a whole career in the role of the spokesperson's office. Together with Ella and Yoav, they're the ones who are communicating to the world through the Dovrei Tzahal, through the spokesperson's office, what happened, what it's like for families, that their lives were ruined, that will never be the same. And no matter how much they rebuild, this has changed their life. In this Tisha B'Av, what we're doing and what we're experiencing is the greatest tragedy in our history since, it's the greatest one-day tragedy since the Shoah. We're going to start with Ella. Ella will share her family's story, not only what happened, but Ella's going to share with you what their life is like trying to rebuild in the aftermath of this tragedy. And at this point, we can hand it over. Ella, thank you very much for taking the time, for sharing with us, and for educating us.
Thank you for having me. It's always hard to know where to start this story, but I guess I can start with my grandparents. My grandfather was born in Germany and moved to Israel when he was 7. Then he met my grandma, and they both helped to establish Kibbutz Be'eri. This was in 1946. So my roots are deeply inside Be'eri since I was born. My dad and his siblings grew up there. My dad ended up moving to central Israel, to Tel Aviv, when he was younger. So I was born in Tel Aviv, but Be'eri was always kind of a second home to me. And this is where the connection to my part as a soldier comes to my personal story, because on October 7th, I lost a lot of people from my family, and it took a lot of time to also understand what happened to each member of the family. I believe only about 2 weeks after October 7th, we got the full picture, and we got the information about 4 members of my family being murdered and other 7 being kidnapped. Right now, I can happily say that 6 of the 7 were returned during the operational pause, the hostage deal that was last November. But unfortunately, my cousin, Tal Shoam, is still being held captive over 300 days. So this is my situation right now. I think it took me about 3 months to even get closer to the south of Israel. to see with my own eyes what happened. But once I was there, I understood that I can't be silent and I have to tell the story. And I have an opportunity because of my part in the IDF inside the spokesperson unit. I have the chance to talk to people and to let people know and see with their own eyes what happened to my family and to 1,200 people on that day. So this is where I'm at right now.
Ella, if you're allowed to, can you share with us how your families had to deal with this? Both those who were hostages, just trying to rebuild their lives after the 50-some days that they spent as captives of Hamas, and those who were not hostages, what it's like trying to rebuild their lives.
In the beginning, before the 6 members of my family returned, it was pure chaos. We had to navigate between mourning and grieving and also fighting to bring our loved ones that still can be saved, to bring them back. We didn't have time to grieve and to sit Shiva as we should have. We still didn't. And after the 6 of them came back, it was a huge relief. We were very, very happy for about a week until we understood it's going to take a lot of time and efforts to bring everyone back. Inside these 6 people, we're talking about 2 kids, Yahel, which is 4 years old, and Nave, 8 years old. They were both kidnapped with their mom and dad, and their dad is the one that's still kidnapped. So they are better. They are, of course, not hostages anymore. They're trying to deal with the trauma, but they cannot fully get out of this story and this trauma without their dad being back. We can't lie to them about where their dad is. We can't tell them stories because they know for themselves. They've been there. They saw everything. And it still shows. I think it's better every day, but it still shows by them drawing pictures of Hamas terrorists holding guns. And I saw the drawing. It looks like a terrorist. It looks like an M16 gun. They know how it looks like. And they talk about it and they cry before they go to sleep. And it's only going to get better once their dad is back. So we're still kind of navigating through the healing and the fighting for our loved ones that are still there.
Ella, would you share with us and I'm going to phrase it, and if it's phrased wrong, please rephrase this. Your family has not had a chance because of the terrible destruction, physical destruction at Be'eri, to reestablish themselves. You know, when somebody goes through something, if they can go back to the home which is theirs, they can start to have a certain sense of normalcy in their life. Rebuild that normalcy routine is very important. Your family members right now are still refugees. In that sense of, we say in English, displacement. Can you describe that to us and the challenges of that?
So this was kind of another challenge when they came back. We didn't really know where they're going to live because the kibbutz is totally destroyed. And these are people that live there their whole lives. They don't know anything else. So eventually we got a house in Herzliya, which is in central Israel. And they stayed there until now. Still trying to get used to this surreal reality. But yeah, they're living in a foreign home, which doesn't really feel like a home. And when we talk to them about moving back to Be'eri, it's a very sensitive thing, because at the beginning, they didn't want to even hear about it. They couldn't imagine themselves going back. And that's also a conversation we're having as a kibbutz. How do we move on? Do we destroy everything that was ruined and build a new kibbutz? Do we keep everything as it is so we don't forget. People don't want to live inside a memorial, but also we can't just forget about everything. So there isn't an actual answer for your question, but I think we're gonna understand with the time that passes, and also it depends on when Tar will come back and how fast or quick the healing is gonna be, or when it's gonna start. But right now everything feels temporary. They're just sleeping at the house, so they have a place to sleep, but it's not a home, and I don't think anywhere feels like a home to them right now.
Does your family have possessions that we all cherish? Family pictures, picture albums of the ancestors. Was there anything that could be saved or taken from Be'eri, or were all their possessions destroyed?
In our family's case, I think almost nothing was left. I found a part of a plate in my aunt's house, a small part of a table, but not a lot other than that. Unfortunately, the terrorists decided to fully destroy the houses of my family. It was kind of random. Not all the houses in the kibbutz are completely destroyed, but in my family's case, there's not much left except for what was kept in other houses. In my house in Tel Aviv, on the computer, what was backed up.
And I'd like you to please add to what I'm going to say right now. For the context of our listeners, in the past, we've had members of Be'eri. Be'eri is a very crucial, as is Kfar Aza, we're going to be hearing later from Yoav. These communities were set up strategically to be the buffer between Egypt, Mitzrayim, and Israel. And keep in mind, the first, until the Sadat Begin Accords, until the peace accords, the greatest existential threat to Israel wasn't Syria, wasn't Jordan, wasn't Iraq, it was Egypt. Egypt was the most powerful army. Egypt, in the case of 67, they had 500 brand new Soviet-made jets. They had 1,700 brand new Soviet tanks, not to mention thousands of other tanks and jets. The real threat was Egypt. And from day one, before Hakamat HaMedina, before Israel was established, these communities, we have a phrase in English, you got to be tough to live on a border town. You see that in the Mishnah and the Gemara. There's special standards for people living in a border town that wouldn't necessarily apply to other communities because of the challenges that they're facing. And that's who Be'eri is. That's who Kfar Aza is. So from a point of view of Israeli history and Jewish history, we have incredible gratitude to the families that live there, that established these communities. And just one other point, and those of you who've read the Michael Oren, which is really the authoritative work on the history of the Six-Day War, under General Gavish, under General Sharon, you had thousands of soldiers encamped around Be'eri, waiting during the Hamtana, preparing for what would be the Six-Day War. And thousands of graves were dug at Kibbutz Be'eri in anticipation of the slaughter of our soldiers, the slaughter of our border communities. And thank God in 1967, we didn't have to use those graves. Those were thousands of graves dug that never had to be filled. The tragedy that we're living through today in 2024, in the aftermath of the Simchat Torah massacre, is that tragically there are graves that has to be filled of Be'eri, but unfortunately they couldn't even be buried there because it was a war zone in the aftermath of October 7th. They couldn't even be buried there. And the other tragedy is that there's certain remains that there's nothing left to bury. And there are certain bodies that are being held right now in Gaza. And I'm talking about those that we know are no longer alive. We can't even bury them. And there's no sense of closure. There's no sense of finality. And Ella was describing that with her family. And that sense of not having a sense of closure, not having psychologically the ability to go back home, to rebuild, to restart your life, That's a horrific way to live. Ella, I don't know if you want to share any other thoughts.
Yeah, I do. It's unbelievable that even the people that we lost, we can't have a full closure with. My family still isn't in Be'eri, in the cemetery of Be'eri. And still we get text messages every once in a while about the dates we're gonna say goodbye, as we should have done at the beginning, to the people that we lost, that are finally being brought to Be'eri. And we're almost 10 months after, and there's still not a full closure. And the number keeps getting bigger and bigger, whether we're talking about the hostages that died while in captivity, or the people that we lost on October 7th and are still not back in Be'eri. We're so far away from ending this thing, which makes it hard to be optimistic and hopeful. So we have to find the good things with each other to survive and to stay strong and to make a better reality as soon as possible. Yeah.
Ella, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're now going to turn over to Ron. And again, I want to say that we had a mission just a couple of weeks ago where Ron led us through Kfar Aza. And Ron had this ability to share with us the lives, the meaning of the various members that were lost in Kibbutz Kfar Aza. In Kibbutz Kfar Aza, as Ron will describe to you, it wasn't just one type of person. There were many, I would call them micro communities there. And Ron, you yourself had completed your tour of duty in Dovrei Tzahal, and right now you're functioning in Miluim. Is that correct?
Yeah, I finished my service in 2016, and on the day of October 7th, I called in again, and I'm in reserve since then. During trying to tell the world what happened on October 7th in the Gaza envelope, in the communities around the Gaza envelope, in the 22 communities who are affected from Hamas attack on October 7th.
Well, what do you do in your private life? You've been out of the army since 2016. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I served 2 years in the Washington embassy, in the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. And then I came back, studied law and communication in the Hebrew University, took my internship. And actually, when the war started, I was supposed to take my bar exams to be a lawyer in Israel. And I only took it during the war, during Miluim, during those times. And now I'm officially a lawyer in Israel. But that was a rough time to do that with duty service and when everything started.
So for the last 10 months, you've really been focused as a soldier, really telling the story of what happened on 10/7, as well as telling the story of what's happening during this war.
Yeah, I decided to leave everything behind and to focus on that, because I felt that is my responsibility to try to use any of my tools that I gained to do everything that I could to make the world know. Because I really, really believe that everyone should be aware and recognize what happened on October 7th, what Hamas did on October 7th, the atrocities that they did there, that the human mind cannot fully comprehend. So this is what I'm doing since then, and I'm trying to make every person know that and see what happened. So I really am thankful that I had the opportunity to meet Ella and Yoav during this service. And actually, their families are from the two biggest, largest kibbutzim in the Gaza envelope. Be'eri had 1,200 people, and Kibbutz Kfar Aza 960 people who lived there before October 7, and around 10% of their population were either kidnapped or murdered during the attack on October 7, during Simchat Torah massacre. And when I was first there, I think that I didn't have the chance really to process what I saw there, what I smelled there, the smell of that was there, the smell of blood, fire, and the atrocities were all over. And this was at the first weeks, months of the war. We're now 10 months after October 7, and it doesn't get easier every time that we are there. So Kibbutz Kfar Aza was established in 1956, and as I said before, 960 people lived there. On October 7, 64 were murdered and 19 were kidnapped from the kibbutz. 5 out of those 19 that were kidnapped are still in Hamas captivity until this day. Most of them were, 4 out of 5 were kidnapped from their houses, their apartments in the young generation neighborhood. This is where all the young people of the kibbutz, the next generation, what was supposed to be the next people who will establish a family and a house inside a kibbutz. This was the neighborhood that was attacked and was destroyed the most. Most of the people there either murdered or kidnapped.
Ron, for those who have not been to Kfar Aza, could you describe for us, that how they built that special neighborhood for young people? What's the whole idea? That neighborhood was the closest to the Gaza border. Just describe that for a sense from the kibbutz's perspective, from the person, the kind of person that would want to move there and what they were doing. If you could paint that picture for our viewers.
Yeah, so in every kibbutz, actually, when you reach the age 18, you have the opportunity to leave your parents' house and to move into the young generation neighborhood of the kibbutz. In every kibbutz, it's built kind of differently, but it has the same purpose: to start their own life, try to take responsibility of their life, and try to dream there and to think what they're going to do. They're coming back from the army, from school. Either they're students or worked in the factories of the kibbutz. It depends on each kibbutz of what you're doing there. And after work, you're coming back to the people that you grew up with, because they're kind of in the same ages, between 20 to 30 max, and live there together, dreaming, doing barbecue, playing karaoke. Yoav can tell us how it was there before October 7, how happy. It was the happiest place in the kibbutz. And it's kind of built like a community inside a community. It built with apartments. Each apartment has a bedroom that is used as the safe room, a living room, small kitchen and small bathroom, and this is it. And the most important thing, it's not the apartment, it's what happens outside of the apartment. It's the community. And this is where everyone went, and it builds that way in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, that this neighborhood was the closest one to the border with Gaza, right in front of Jabalia. And actually, when you stand there, you can see it right across from you. If you stand in the
just to share with those who are participating, Jabalia, you've heard that phrase, Jabalia refugee camp. That was one of the most vicious, horrific places in Gaza, in terms of the quality of the terrorists, the number of terrorists, the hatred from that community. And it's the other side of the border. How far, Ron, was that from Kfar Aza?
So it's about a mile far, 20-30 minutes walk through the fields between the kibbutz and Gaza. And from Jabalia, most of the terrorists that infiltrate to Kibbutz Kfar Aza and other communities in the area came from. Also, the second and the third wave of looters, of regular Gazans that are not associated with Hamas, came through the same way, right after the terrorists infiltrated the kibbutz. the people who lived there, who were saved from the attack on October 7, described the life before October 7, how it was to live there. And they said, one of them, that he used to stand there just like that and see Jabalia from just across the fence of the kibbutz, and thought and believed that he's saved. And even like if like he said that he wasn't afraid at all, because he thought that on the other side that he have friends and people who truly believe that they're not wanted to harm them or do anything to them, just to live in peace and quiet. And when I asked why to move there, why do you stay so close to Gaza? So they said that why not? It's a beautiful place. It's heaven on earth, so quiet and peaceful, and they actually can grow together and decide what they're going to do with their life, and share and experience things together as a community inside a community, far from their parents, but not that far. And why not? It's like, why are you even asking me this question? It's so clear why to choose to stay in the kibbutz and live in this neighborhood.
You painted a picture very clearly to us of this incredible communal life, these young people starting out their so to speak, their young adulthood together, etc. Now, if you could paint a very different picture, what happened on 10/7? What happened on the Simchat Torah massacre? And tell some of the stories of the people that live there.
So on October 7, as you already know, of course, 6:30 in the morning, there were alarming amount of alarms started hearing along the kibbutz and the Gaza envelope and all over Israel. What we do as Israelis, we know that we're going to the safe room, the safest place that we have. We're going in, we just shut the door because the doors are not locked. And you stay there until the rocket threats are passing and the Iron Dome is protecting us. But on this day it was different. Following those alarms, ongoing alarms, they start hearing in the kibbutzim, in the communities around the Gaza envelope, yelling in Arabic and gunshots outside the houses. People immediately understood that this is something else that happens there, and they try to make their families safe inside the safe rooms. People stay there, and they didn't knew that almost 300 terrorists infiltrated to Kibbutz Kfar Aza and intend to murder, to butcher, to do as much damage as they can. And they came very well prepared. They came with gun machines and pickup trucks and motorbikes with RPGs, grenades, tires and gasoline they brought from Gaza to set the houses on fire, because they knew that people will be hiding in the safe rooms, and they wanted to make them come out from the safe room. So they set the houses on fire, and they waited for them outside the windows in order to kidnap them to Gaza. One very, very brave and very incredible man was kind of a simple, as to me as Israeli and to us as a community and to Kibbutz Kfar Aza and the regional council of Sha'ar HaNegev. It's Ophir Lipstein. Ophir was the head of the regional council, and he grew his family there, and he was supposed to run again to re-elect in the regional elections that we are supposed to hold in November in Israel. And he was also a part of the protective squad of the kibbutz. So another part that we must understand is that there was a protective squad in each of every kibbutz that close to the border. They have a first responders team of members of the kibbutz that have rifles, stores in the armory, in order to get the first response if something like that happens, if terrorists infiltrate to the kibbutz. So all of them are going to the armory to get their weapons and going to their positions inside the kibbutz. Ophir did that and went to the armory to get his weapon, and he was one of the fewest that actually succeeded to do that because the terrorists waited for them in the armory. He ran back to his house to protect his wife and his 3 sons that were there in the house on that day. But before he managed to enter the house, 20 meters from the house, he had a gunfire with the terrorists that waited for him there, and his body was found 20 meters from the entrance of the house. The one who found the body was his son, that didn't understood why dad is not coming back home, and he saw that he's 20 meters from the house, is not coming back. He decided to go out to see what happened, to look for him, and he saw his body, took the rifle, and went back to defend his mom and his siblings. What they didn't knew at the time that Vered, Ophir's wife, mother, Bilha, was already murdered in the morning of the attack. And their son, Nitzan, the 4th son, was also murdered in the Young Generation neighborhood. And Neta, the nephew of Vered, jumped on a grenade to save his fiance, while the terrorists threw grenades inside the houses in order to murder as much as they can. He jumped on a grenade to save her. So they lost 4 members from the family, 3 generations from the same family, and it's only one family, one family story in one kibbutz, in one community were attacked. And if I can share with you what kind of people they were, it's not a coincidence that Ophir was that person, or even Elah's aunts were that person who dedicated their life to make the world better. And it was something very common in the Gaza envelope citizens. It's not a coincidence that they chose to live there, chose to live under immediate rocket threats every day. Ophir dreamt about making peace. He believed in peace economy, and he wanted to make the Erez crossing, the next Silicon Valley. He wanted to establish their Arazim interstitial zone, and he was very, very far in the approvals, and then he got the financials to build it in order to make Gazans and Israelis work together to build a future for both of us. And this had happened to him and to his family, and he dedicated his life through peace. And it's not only him, it's you can see it all over. In Kibbutz Kfar Aza, family, the Kuch family used to make kites and fly them to Gaza as a peace gesture. They used to make kites, DIY, and put symbols, or they used to write on them peace, shalom, salam, come to the fence of the kibbutz as close as they can to Gaza, and fly kites as a peace gesture to Gaza. And all the Kuch family, 5 members of the family, were murdered on that day. So the attack, Hamas chose to attack innocent civilians in their houses, but also as civilians, people who truly believed in peace, were seeking for peace, and did everything that they could in the world to make the world better, to make them believe the other side that peace can actually happen. And when I first got, as I said before, to the kibbutz, I had only one friend from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, all of my life, from the Gaza envelope. I'm originally from the center of Israel, and I met a middle-life friend that his sister and his brother-in-law were murdered on October 7th. And I can tell you that those meetings with the people of the Gaza envelope, of the kibbutzim, the communities where I attacked, were something that I will never forget. And I never thought that people like that are actually still alive in this world, in this mad world that truly believed in peace and did everything they could through peace, and believed that it could happen. They gave the Palestinians, the Gazan citizens, job opportunities inside the kibbutzim. They used to drive them to treatments in Israel, in the hospitals in Israel, through the Eretz crossing with their own cars, on their own time, on their free time. They used to schedule with the Palestinians a ride to the hospitals in Israel so they could get their treatments in the Israeli hospital. Those are the people that we are talking about, that were attacked, murdered, kidnapped from their own houses, from the safest place that we know that we have, our safe rooms inside our houses. We have to understand that a safe room is another room in the house. It's supposed to protect us from rockets, from missiles that will be fired sometimes from Gaza. We know that. We prepared for that, but we weren't prepared for terrorists that standing outside our doorsteps trying to shoot us. Those safe rooms are not supposed to protect us from that. The doors of the safe rooms are not bulletproof. They have a safety mechanism, so you can easily get in and out from the safe room. If something happens, you cannot lock it. The safe room does not have a lock. People who thought out of the box on that day and managed somehow to lock those doors, managed to save themselves from the terrorists that stood outside their doorsteps. But those safe rooms were the strongest and safest place that we knew that we have, and they targeted specifically the safe rooms. In the young generation neighborhood, they shot RPGs through the safe rooms because they knew exactly that the people will be hiding there. And they try to infiltrate to the safe rooms. They try to murder them inside the safe rooms. They burn the houses in order to get people to go out from the safe rooms. And that was the reality on October 7th. And as I said before, the human mind cannot fully comprehend even being there and see those stuff on your own eyes after 10 months when the blood was cleaned and the bodies are not there, and the smell of that was there for weeks. When the birds came back and the trees are growing again, it's hard to understand, but the world have to and must to see that and not ignoring that, because silence is not an option for anyone in the world. So thank you for this, for doing that, for hosting us on this day.
Ron, thank you. Thank you very much, and for your personal sacrifice to the Jewish nation, to Israel, and for sharing with us. We're very grateful to you.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to turn to Yoav. Yoav's family lived on Kfar Aza, a family that had been there for generations. Yoav himself was a Nachal soldier. And during the war, he's now serving in Dovrei Tzahal in the spokesperson's unit, as is Ella, as is Ron. And we had the great honor of meeting Yoav. And Yoav took us through Kfar Aza together with Ron and Ella. Yoav, please, if you could share with us the story of your family.
Yes, of course. First, thank you that you hosted us. Thank you very much. My story. In Yom Shishi, we make Shishi with my girlfriend. She lives in Be'er Sheva with her parents. And we wanted to go to Kfar Aza and sleep here. And before we start to go, a friend called me and asked me if I want to play with them a game. So I go to Lehavim to play. I back very, very late, so we stay to sleep in Be'er Sheva. 6:28 in Yom Shabbat, October 7, we wake up from the message. I see a lot of message about rocket to Israel, all to country. And I remember that I told to my girlfriend Ophir, I think it's the war start. They don't just shoot to the center. I send a message to my mom and my dad. They said they in the safe room. And after 15 minutes, my mom go outside to walk with my dogs, and she hear Arabic and gunshot behind the bush. She ran to the back to home. She locked the door. She closed the window. She go to the safe room and tell to my dad, I think we have a terrorist in Kfar Aza. My dad said that it's not possible. It's from the border. It's not here. Maybe it's a helicopter. It's not happening here. After 25 minutes, terrorists start to shoot at my house. Try to open the door, try to open the window of the safe room. My dad was on he locked the door of the safe room. It was like a fight between the terrorist and my dad. And in this time, I'm in Be'er Sheva with my girlfriend, try to connection with my parents. They don't answer. We lost connection with them for hours. And I'm trying open to Telegram and media to get information about my parents. They live, they kidnapped, what happened. My brother called me, tell me, be ready, maybe the parents murder. Be ready. After 5 hours, my mom sent a message that they live, they in the safe room. Terrorists still try to open the door. And I tried to help from Be'er Sheva. And my sister also, my big sister Omer, she also been in Kfar Aza in the same day. She keep Shabbat for 4 months before October 7. So she don't open the phone when the attack start, and she don't answer to the call or the message. And we see in the WhatsApp group from a neighbor that is a terrorist inside the neighborhood of my sister. And I be sure that my sister Omer also murder. And she tell us after I see Omer, she tell us she wake up after 5 hours the attack start. She go outside. She don't open the phone. She think it's nothing. She go outside. She go to another neighbor. She knock on the door, and the neighbor of Vlada opened the door for Omer. And just after 5 hours, my sister sent a message that she in the safe room. And it was like forever for us, for my family, that my sister, she don't answer. And you know that terrorists inside the neighborhood, yeah, I'm sorry. After 22 hours, Yahalom saved my parents. 22 hours in the safe room without water or food. And also they turn off the air conditioner to not do a noise. After 22 hours, my parents, they walk to the gas station. It's 3 kilometers from my house. They walk with the soldiers. And I see my parents after 27 hours. In Sunday, it was very hard. We don't stop to cry. And when I see my parents in the center, I still get a message in the WhatsApp groups that people still in the safe room in Kfar Aza. Terrorists still to kidnap or kill. It was very hard, and I remember the first days of the attack. I go to Shfaim Hotel Shfaim. It's the hotel that hostage all the Kfar Aza community. And you see all the people of Kfar Aza, they cry. Every second you get a name about another man that murdered or another people they kidnap. And the first day was very hard for everyone. We want to talk about the young delegation, the Dor Tzair in Hebrew. I want to share about one story. My best friend Ophir, she murdered in the safe room in the young delegation. She sent a message in our group in 10 in the morning that she shot in the end, and we tried to help for Phil. And after 45 minutes, she sent another message. It was the last message from Ophir that she said that I love you guys, knew it. And after 10 hours, the soldiers found Ophir's body with 5 bullets in the chest. And all the room was black from the fire, from the smoke of the fire. Yeah.
Yoav?
Yeah.
Your family right now, are they still in Shfayim?
No, my parents, my family, we're now in Be'eri Yaakov with my grandpa and my grandma. It's yeah, we have a private house that people give us to live here, in not in the hotel. But all the community and all the wow, I forget the word. Asefot. Asefot kibbutz.
Yeah, the gathering of the refugees.
The meetings of Kfar Aza, yeah. They in Shfaim. So we go every day to Shfaim and see what happened to the community and what's gonna happen in the future.
If I could ask you a similar question to what we asked Ella earlier, for your family that, they don't have a chance to go back to rebuild their home. They don't know when they're going to come back, if they're going to come back. That notion of being in Ben Hashmashot, it's a twilight zone. That frustration, if you can describe that to us.
Yes, I can say about my family that we want to back to Kfar Aza and we want to build a new house and build a new community. It's hard for everyone, especially for my parents. Because they be in the attack, they hear the sound of the gunshot, they hear the Arabic, and still now when my parents go outside and someone knock the door very strong, my parents they scared. Even the planes that we have in the sky, they scared. It's a trauma for my parents and also for everyone in my community. Also for me, I don't think Kfar Aza in the same day, but I have a trauma because the day. And all the community of Kfar Aza, we are try to fight on this. We have a lot of psychologim and people that help us. And I know a lot of people want to back to Kfar Aza, but I have a friend, they don't want to back because they can't. They lost a brother or mom or dad, and they can't to back to Kfar Aza.
Yoav, I can't thank you enough for sharing this, the way that you and Ella described what your families are going through. And it's so painful to listen to it because, there's no nechama. People don't have their loved ones back. People don't have the bodies of their loved ones back who they know are deceased. They can't come to closure. They can't go back and rebuild their homes yet. It's so painful to hear this. And we as a Jewish people, and anyone who cares for any sense of morality, because not everyone listening and watching and participating on this Zoom or on the briefing, not everyone is Jewish, but they're all moral people. They're all good people. And any human being who cares about just basic decency, when they hear what you said, what Ella said, what Ron said, and the lives, the beautiful lives that were just lost, that were destroyed, it just taken for no reason other than the fact that they were Jews, other than the fact that they lived in Israel. And we wish each and every one of your families a rebuilding, the ability to transcend and to heal from the PTSD, the ability to rebuild and restart those communities. Those were precious communities. The way that each of you spelled out just how significant, how important those communities are. I don't know if I'm using the right term, but we say Melech Haaretz. The people living, along the Otef Gaza, the Gaza circumference, incredibly good people, people with arachim, with great values, people with great midot, of real substance, healthy, good quality people. And it's a tragedy that we'll never overcome. It's a tragedy that the scar tissues for sure will remain with them, but will remain with the Jewish people throughout our history. And I know this was not easy for either of you, but we want to thank you for sharing, really for sharing with us and for sensitizing us to what those incredible Jews, those incredible Israelis have gone through. Would either any of you want to say any last remarks to us before we end?
I want to say it's 305 days that we still have hostage in Gaza, and we need to make a deal for these people that they can't say this because they hostage, and it's important for us and of Tal, the cousin of Ella, and my friend from my kibbutz. They need to back now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. And if we're connecting to what we talked about, this is the only way we can recover, rebuild, and continue with our lives. We kind of have a few situations we're dealing with. We have the grief about the people we lost. We have the fight over the people that are hostages that still can be saved. And we also have our lives that we still need to live. So these are three situations that are impossible right now. And only when all of the hostages come back, we can start to recover, we can grieve, and then move on with our lives and try to continue in a better way.
If I can share some thoughts that I have and some hope that we are the Israelis and the Jews all over, and we are strong people, and we will rise and we will rebuild, and children we will be running around the grasses of the kibbutzim and the communities around the Gaza envelope and in Israel as general. But as a line, Yoav first said that we cannot do it without our people here in Israel. When them being there in Gaza, still in Hamas captivity, it's something that has to be solved somehow. But we will be rebuilt, and we will be a great country again, and I'm sure of that. We just have to bring them back home as soon as possible. It's been 10 months that our people, our brothers and sisters, are not here, and I want to thank you again for the opportunity to talk about our friends, family, our precious people that cannot share these stories, or that they've been through hell and they cannot be here to talk about it. And again, thank you for the opportunity to do that. And thank you for the support. We feel it miles away. We feel it. And it's not, as you said before, it's not only the Jews. It's something that should concern the world, what happened on October 7th, and should concern the West world. Like, it wasn't only against the Jews, it was the Philippines workers that were murdered brutally, the Thai workers, was dog that shot on that day. They came to do as much damages and as much murder and the biggest atrocities that they can make on that day. So the support that we feel from all over the world, from miles away, it's very important to us, and this is what giving us the strength to do that, to fight for the people that we love and to rebuild again. So thank you.
To Ella, to Ron, to Yoav, thank you. And the world, no one can walk in the shoes of your relatives. No one can walk in the shoes of the people of Kfar Aza and Be'eri. But the world, there are people out there who care. There are Jews, there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are people all over the world that have a sense of a moral compass. Unfortunately, you don't see that in the media. Unfortunately, you don't see that on the campuses. But there are people out there with a moral compass who know that this is evil and who can only appreciate to a small degree the incredible sacrifice of the people of Be'eri, the incredible sacrifice of the soldiers, the incredible sacrifice of the people of Kfar Aza. And we thank you. We thank you for making the 9 days of Av, for making the Tisha B'Av season, giving us a chance to appreciate, to mourn, and we thank you for your time.